In this section, we're going to be talking about energy, and it really is what powers everything in life. So, thermodynamics specifically means heat, and dynamic is the action and change. So, it's how like heat changes in different scenarios. So, this is the study of energy. There's two general states of energy: kinetic energy, which is energy of movement, of flow, and then there's potential energy, which is like a very stored energy. So, here with the person with the arrow, you would maybe say that the arrow has a lot of potential energy while it's pulled back, but then when it's released, it's got a lot of kinetic energy. So, if you think about the sun, would that be kinetic energy or potential energy? Well, because it's coming and it's actually flowing, that I mean the sun in some ways has potential energy like stored in the sun, but the light coming down to us would be kinetic energy. So, physicists measure energy in joules, and biologists usually call it calories, or it's actually like the kilocalorie. And what is a calorie? So, a calorie is the amount of energy needed to raise 1 kilogram of water, which 1 kilogram of water is 1 liter. So, if you think of a 2 liter bottle, if you cut that in half, that would be a single liter, right? 1 liter. And a calorie is the amount of energy it takes to raise 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So to bring that up by 1 degree, like if you turned on a heater underneath it, how much energy would you have to burn to bring that up to 1 degree Celsius? And interestingly, what we call 1 calorie on the sides of packages of food is actually 1,000 calories. It's actually a kilocalorie, but we like to just break it off and just ignore the kilo part and call it calories. So, and then we're eating about 2,000 kilocalories a day, but we just ignore the kilo part and just call them calories because I don't know. I don't know. Okay. So, where do the calories come from in food? Well, they come from photosynthesizers, things that are autotrophs and make their own food. These can be plants, algae, cyanobacteria. Organisms that make their own food are called autotrophs. A troph is how you get food, and an organism that's an autotroph is making their own food. I'm sorry, I went ahead. So, what do photosynthetic organisms need besides just sunlight? Well, they take in CO2, carbon dioxide, and they take in water, and they use sunlight here, and then they form sugar, C6H12O6, and oxygen. So, sunlight is a type of kinetic energy, and light is the source of energy that provides the boost for electrons in this process. So, which is called photosynthesis. So, really, light is the source that provides the boost for the electrons to move in this process. It's what gives it energy. So, your metabolism, or an organism's metabolism, is all of the chemical and molecular reactions inside of a cell. So some people say they have a high metabolism, meaning they're burning a lot, and some people have a low metabolism, where they're not burning, they're not having very fast chemical and molecular reactions in their body. And so using more or less, it would mean that you need more or less food. Okay, so to balance these two equations for photosynthesis, you're taking in 6 CO2 and 6 H2O. So 6 carbon dioxides and 6 hydrogens. And then you're using sunlight to make ATP, which is an energy source, and then C6H12O6, which is sugar, and 6O2, which is oxygen. So I want to show you how to balance these. To balance this equation, this 6 is like a coefficient that goes towards everything that gets multiplied to everything past it. So 6 um, carbons, this represents 6 carbons. It also represents 6 times the O, which is oxygen, but the O has a subscript of 2. So then you multiply the 2 times the 6 and you actually have 12 oxygens. So you have 6 carbons and 6 O2, so that means 12 oxygens. Then also on this side you have 6 H2s, which 6 times 2 is 12. And then you have 6 oxygens here. So total, we said we already had 6 carbons, but because we have 12 oxygens on top and 6 on the bottom, we actually have 18 oxygens. And then we have 12 hydrogens. So 6 carbons, 18 oxygens, 12 hydrogens. On the output side, we have 6 carbons, just like on our input. 6 carbons, 6 carbons. We also have 12 hydrogens, and if you remember here, 6 times 2 was 12 hydrogens. And you'll probably remember we had 6 times 2 oxygens and 6 oxygens here, so that's 12, or 18, I'm sorry, 18 oxygens. So on this side, we have 6 oxygens plus 6 times 2, which is 12. So 6 plus 12, we have 18 oxygens over here. So this is what we call a balanced equation. On each side, there's the same amount of carbons, oxygen, hydrogens as on the other side. Then we also have this thing called ATP. What is ATP? ATP is like a rechargeable battery. You use up the energy, use it all up, and then you can fill it up again. Now, photosynthesis and cell respiration, these two processes are actually complementary. During photosynthesis and cell respiration, some energy is lost. Now, question, there's a picture of a plant here. Do plants ever have cell respiration? Or do they only have photosynthesis? Are plants ever breathing your oxygen? Like, if you have a plant in your bedroom, is it only giving you oxygen, or is it stealing your oxygen? Well, sometimes plants, when it is dark and they're not getting light, they have to have a way to breathe. And at that point, they're actually having cell respiration. They use their stored sugar as a fuel for cell respiration and a starting material for making other organic molecules. And then because plant cells have cell respiration, it also means that they have chloroplasts and mitochondria. They have both. They have chloroplasts and mitochondria where these take place. So at night when it's dark, your plant is using some of the oxygen in the room. It's very, very little compared to what you use. You need way more than what the plant needs. But when it's dark, they actually are using a little bit of oxygen. Okay, so what is C6H12O6? This molecule here that we've already mentioned is sugar. That's the molecule for sugar. So it's glucose specifically, which is a simple sugar carbohydrate. And then why do plants make sugar? They're making it for themselves. Sometimes for you, to entice you to like eat their fruit and spread their seeds. They do it to survive the winter. For at night when they don't have light, then they have to live off of their sugar storage. So all of those reasons. And here, plants do have stored energy, and that's eaten by heterotrophs. So there's potential energy in the plants and food that we eat. There's potential, and we need to use it for kinetic energy. So there's a lot of bonds in your food, and when your body breaks those bonds, that energy gets released. Fungus and animals are heterotrophs, and that just means they derive their food from outside other sources. So all organisms tap the energy in C6H12O6, which is sugar, via respiration by using respiration. So, respiration, all animals do it, fungi, bacteria, and protists do it, and even plants do it. So, when you take a deep breath, what goes in? You're breathing in oxygen. What comes out? Carbon dioxide. And energy is being released from the food that you've previously eaten, either stored on you via fat, or if you've had it recent food and you have sugar in your blood, then that's being broken down. So, aerobic respiration is this side of the equation. It's um, using sugar plus oxygen to make carbon dioxide and water. So, I want to point out this because it's important. In metabolic pathways, when you see arrows, anywhere that you see the arrows, that means that enzymes are making or breaking bonds. And we'll talk about that more, but that's a very key point that the arrows that you see, bonds are being broken or made. So here you can see this is more of a breaking up to make this. So energy metabolism, here's aerobic respiration again. It's important to note that this is the equation for aerobic cell respiration. This is the equation for aerobic cell respiration. In cell respiration, sugar and oxygen, this side are the reactants, and carbon dioxide, water, and ATP, they are the products. So what goes into the equation is called the reactants. What comes out is called the products. So we're going to compare photosynthesis and cell respiration. So in photosynthesis, it happens in autotrophs, plants, algae, and cyanobacteria, and respiration happens in everything, even plants. So photosynthesis is just amazing, by the way. Photosynthetic organisms convert solar energy, like from the sun, into chemical energy. And the process of photosynthesis provides most of the energy for life on Earth. And these are called the autotrophs. Okay, so here's the opposite of these two equations. You can see this is photosynthesis taking carbon dioxide, which is a poison to us. That's why we breathe it out. Carbon dioxide is poisonous to us. That's why we breathe it out. And plants take that and water and sunlight, and then they make energy for us and oxygen and sugar. That is the best deal on the planet. They take something that is poisonous to us, water and sunlight, and turn it into sugar and oxygen and energy for us. And then we take that sugar and oxygen and we turn it back into the poison and water and use up the energy. So when you take a bunch of small molecules, this is a really important point as well. When you take a bunch of small molecules and assemble them into larger molecules, like what's happening here, small stuff getting assembled into larger stuff, this takes energy, a lot of energy, and that's why it's coming from the sun. It's a lot of energy coming from the sun. Now, breaking them apart releases energy, and it's not very hard to do. You can almost picture like stacking all the shelves in the stores and trying to keep them stacked all the time. It takes so much energy. Then somebody can come along and just like wipe the whole thing out or crash their cart into it and make everything fall. It doesn't take really any energy and just makes a huge mess. But stacking it and like building that takes a lot of energy. In photosynthesis, carbon dioxide right here is reduced to form sugar. And in respiration, sugar is oxidized. It has oxygen added to it to form carbon dioxide. That's also a really important point. So the important thing is it's making ATP. It's so important. So what is ATP? This is specifically what it looks like. It has an adenosine, a ribose, and some phosphates, and each of these have just a little bit of energy on it, and it's a type of biomolecule called a nucleic acid. Um, Thermodynamics, where is the energy? The energy specifically is in these chemical bonds. That's why it shows them holding hands, and that's where the energy is. So when ATP is broken up, it breaks up into I'll just give you the short name, ADP, and a phosphate ion. And that energy transfers, this phosphate can transfer to a new molecule and get used for cell work. So one ATP yields one ADP plus one phosphate ion plus energy. Uh, what molecules catalyze cell work? Uh, enzymes. Enzymes help make and break bonds, and they work at specific temperatures. Enzymes are a type of protein, and they work. This is also really important that you pay attention to this part. Enzymes work at specific temperature ranges. They don't release heat. If they're at too high of a temperature, the enzyme will be destroyed. If they're at too low of a temperature, they won't work either. So enzymes are really like what catalyzes and gets reactions to happen. So they help the reactions by kind of shaping and blobbing into just the right shape in order to make the reaction occur. And here's something from SpongeBob.
Listen up, Safe. I will spill your contents even if I have to tear you apart. Yeah. Bit by bit. Yeah. Molecule by molecule. Atom by atom. Uh-oh.
So that's when Plankton broke the atom. I don't know if you guys ever watched SpongeBob, but I don't have time to watch SpongeBob, but I've seen enough episodes. Okay, so what controls enzyme activity? And it's the enzyme shape. So here's an enzyme here, and here's a variety of shapes. So enzymes will fit a certain substrate to make the reaction happen. And it doesn't have to be an absolutely perfect fit, but you can see that this enzyme pretty much would match this substrate and not match these very well. And what I mean by it doesn't have to be a perfect shape is you can see here that here's an enzyme for photosynthesis, and they're showing how the yellow and the red are coming in, and it's going to fit into this activation site. And you can see that it's maybe not a perfect fit, but it figures it out. And then after being attached to the enzyme, the substrate changes. You can see it's changing here. Now it's connected. Now it's a different color. It's now a connected molecule that has turned into something else, and so the enzyme now releases it. So the enzyme didn't get hurt, didn't get helped, it didn't change, and then it just facilitated this and helped this reaction to happen. Here it is again. So you have an enzyme here. This was out of your book. You have a substrate coming in, and it's connected, and you can see that it's not a perfect fit, but it's close enough. The enzyme kind of folds around it. It actually alters the substrate here, and they each change and then are broken apart. So this that was the same thing, like one piece and connected, is now separate things and disconnected. So this is how an enzyme works. Okay, so in plants, photosynthesis occurs in an area called the thylakoids. That's where the light reaction takes place. Specifically, when I say light reactions, I mean when there's sun shining, like it's literally light. And then the stroma handle the dark reactions. So for photosynthesis happens in the chloroplast, and respiration happens in the mitochondria. Remember, plants have chloroplasts and mitochondria, whereas animals only have mitochondria. Um, how do prokaryotes do this? Like ones that don't have, like bacteria. How do bacteria do this? Well, remember they have all of their enzymes and organelle, like just they don't have organelles, so all of their cellular parts are just floating around in there together. So it just they have enzymes that are making this happen in them without having these specific parts. And this kind of feeds back into the endosymbiotic theory that we discussed, where the chloroplasts and the mitochondria look a whole lot like bacteria in that they have their own membranes, they have their own DNA, they divide on their own, um, and have their own division. So it really kind of plays into the fact that maybe a long time ago, um, certain heterotrophs kind of absorbed these prokaryotes and took them on as renters, and now they're just permanently part of chloroplasts and mitochondria in this symbiotic relationship. So, what do these two have in common that would make you think that? They have very bacterial style DNA, they have bacteria like ribosomes, and they're the size of bacteria. So, that kind of goes with the endosymbiotic theory. So how do these two pathways differ? Photosynthesis is making bonds. It's like building, building, building for you. And respiration is breaking the bonds and releasing a lot of energy. So photosynthesis, do all types of synthesis require energy? Yes. So photosynthesis is getting it from the sun. Um, and this is a disgusting picture of like a fox being decayed, but breaking the bonds releases a lot of energy. So that plays to like the laws of thermodynamics. The first law of conservation is the conservation of matter and energy, that you can't create, destroy energy, but you can change it. And the second law of thermodynamics is called entropy, meaning energy diffuses. Using energy transforms it. High quality energy transforms to low, and order becomes disorder. So here's just a picture of, stuff being broken up over time. So I'm going to end this recording here, and I'm going to do the second half of this PowerPoint in a different recording.